German settlers. Unlike the British and French colonial empires, the goal was to create an empire that was German in every sense of the word. In late 1914, when it seemed that Germany might achieve the dreamed-of rapid defeat of France and then turn east in strength, there were belated attempts in Berlin to draw up a list of demands to be submitted to a future peace conference. The September Programme was the creation of Kurt Reisler, the private secretary of Chancellor Theobald von Bethmann-Hollweg, and in addition to securing massive financial reparations and further territory from France, together with annexation of Luxembourg and the reduction of Belgium to a vassal state of Germany, the program called for the creation of a number of new states from territory in European Russia, which would all remain under firm German control. Whilst the program was never formally adopted, and the French victory on the Marne made any immediate prospect of its implementation impossible, other Germans continued to dream of an empire in Eastern Europe, and in 1915, Friedrich Naumann, a German politician, wrote a book entitled Mitteleuropa, further developing the concept of settling new eastern territories with ethnic Germans, though he acknowledged the need for a flexible approach to non-Germans in order to ensure harmonious rule. When the Russian revolutions of 1917 swept away the Tsars and left the Russian army unable to continue the war, it seemed as if the moment for the realization of Mitteleuropa had come, and the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk went a considerable way towards achieving the German dream. The Baltic states were to be settled by Germans who would reinforce the existing Baltic German aristocracy, and the newly independent Ukraine would be firmly under German hegemony. The collapse of Germany in late 1918 led to Bolshevik Russia repudiating the treaty, and there followed a series of conflicts as the Baltic states attempted to assert their independence, both from Bolshevik and German control. Many German veterans of the First World War fought against the Bolsheviks in these wars as part of the Freikorps, and in many cases believed that they had been promised generous grants of land in the Baltic states in return for their service. When they were forced to return to Germany empty-handed, this added to a growing sense of resentment that major German gains in the East had been snatched from their hands. There were many in Germany after the First World War who felt that the Treaty of Versailles was unfairly harsh upon their country, and in several respects, these opinions helped fuel the rise of the National Socialists, who in the turbulent landscape of German politics in the late 1920s seemed to offer the strongest hope of restoring German prestige, status, and pride. Writing in 1925, Hitler made clear his intentions to fight a war of conquest against Russia in order to seize sufficient territory for colonial settlement and to safeguard Germany forever. Whilst Germany, both before and after Hitler's accession to power, cooperated closely with the Soviet Union in economic and military fields, there remained an underlying hostility towards Germany's eastern neighbor, and there seemed a widespread belief on both sides that, ultimately, this would lead to war. Joseph Stalin ignored frequent warnings from a variety of sources about German intentions and preparations, believing that while Britain remained undefeated in the West, Germany was unlikely to attack the Soviet Union, and in any event, the Red Army was sufficiently strong to act as a powerful deterrent to any attack and to defeat such an invasion should it occur. Even when German deserters attempted to warn the Soviet troops along the border in the summer of 1941 that an attack was imminent, most were treated as potential spies and shot. Whilst there can be little doubt that Stalin intended to attack Germany at a moment of his choosing, the precise details of his plans remain the subject of controversy. Writing in 1987 under a pseudonym, the Soviet defector Vladimir Bogdanovich Rezun, who had worked for many years as an officer in both the Soviet army and military intelligence, suggested that a Soviet attack on Nazi Germany was planned to commence just a few days after Hitler's invasion started, and gave a range of evidence. The Soviet forces along the frontier had been issued with maps that covered German territory, but had few or no maps that would be of use in fighting a defensive war against German invasion. German-language phrasebooks that were given to the troops included how to ask for the locations of Nazi Party offices, something that would be of no use if fighting on Soviet territory. And Stalin had altered the call-up age for universal military service from 21 to 18, allowing the Red Army to increase in size from less than 1.9 million men in 1939 to about 5 million by the spring of 1941. Other writers have been deeply critical of Rezun's allegations, in particular the lack of any firm evidence in the form of strategic or operational orders, and have suggested that any Soviet planning about a potential attack on Germany represented little more than sensible operational contingencies. However, it is beyond dispute that Stalin had as little faith as Hitler in the longevity of the non